In Boston and New England, the long winter of our discontent has finally ended today. The grass grows, the buds burst, the meadow is spotted with fire and gold and the tint of flowers, and one is constrained to respect the perfection of this world in which our senses converse. So said Ralph Waldo Emerson in his famous speech to the graduating class of the Harvard Divinity School more than a century and a half ago. You know, I've presided over more commencement exercises that you can count on two hands. I really have. And yet, on each occasion, I'm struck by the suddenness of your transition from one thing to something else entirely. One day you are here, and the next you are not, leaving behind an enduring imprint of your comings and goings among Emerson's academic halls, our studios, our stages, and our playing fields. And as you crossed the stage and shook my hand to the approving applause of family and friends, I was struck not by your sameness, but by your extraordinary particularity, despite the common bonds forged in a common enterprise. I recall my own college graduation sitting in a sea of black caps and gowns, anxious about what was to come and reflecting on how I had arrived at that moment. And I remember thinking about the young boy raised in the Midwest, a boy that belonged to the class of working people, people called the working poor, the first in a generation of families to be educated beyond high school. And though we were never on welfare, many around us were. I remember the excitement at the beginning of each month when powdered milk and big chunks of orange government-issued cheese would arrive in big trucks, along with cans of Spam swimming in oil. And to my young mind, it seemed like a miracle of sorts. Most of the houses in my neighborhood were what we called shotgun houses, that is, standing in the front yard with the front and back doors open. You could fire a shotgun clean through them to the backyard. My great-grandparents made a meager living as sharecroppers near Little Rock, Arkansas, where important civil rights battles over the soul and dignity of this nation were waged. Both of my parents attended high school, although only one actually finished. And only very late in life did I learn that my father earned his GED. And though he lived in a predominantly white school district, he was forced to walk each day to the colored-only segregated school several miles away. However, he worked hard and rose in the economic ranks from a laborer to a manager of people and programs at the city in which I grew up. To meet the needs of a growing family, my mother cleaned houses for a living. And to this day, she reminds me and remains for me one of the most graceful persons that I have ever known. She embodies dignity, even now as Alzheimer's has overtaken the person that I once knew, but that I still love. I have never heard her say an unkind word about anyone. She taught me always to seek out the best rather than the worst in humankind. You know, there were no books in my house growing up except, of course, the Bible. And most of what I read as a young boy were those condensed stories that appeared in Reader's Digest that my mother brought home from the people whose houses she cleaned. When I entered kindergarten in 1954, the Supreme Court had just ruled in May of that year that segregated schools were unconstitutional. My best friend in elementary school was a white boy who lived in the white neighborhood where I went to school, and I recall playing football on Thanksgiving in the fresh, new Kansas snow. He was a pretend Johnny Unitas, the Baltimore Colts quarterback, and I was a pretend Lenny Moore, the all-star running back. And though we walked to school together each day, I was never allowed by his parents to set foot inside his house. My grandmother, the person we called Mama Avery, She lived next door, less than 50 feet away, in a house that my father built with his own hands. It was warm and small, and for me as a young boy, a place of refuge, and a place where my own moral education began, a place to talk long hours about life and about justice. And when I hugged her, she had all those wonderful grandma smells of someone having grown up in the rich red farmland of central Arkansas. Cornbread fresh out of the oven, chocolate cake, and sweet peach cobbler that she made each week for her many grandchildren. And always something a little floral and powdery, like lilacs. She loved little children, believed in God and her church, and she believed that education was a life raft in an unsettled and stormy sea that had special consequences for a young African-American boy growing up in a world divided by race. She taught me at an early age that nothing on earth save family was more precious than a good education. And I have made education my life's work. So mothers and grandmothers, we salute you today, and we thank you for your precious and enduring and unconditional love. So this is my story, or at least that part whose significance is full of meaning and profoundly shapes my own personal narrative. At Emerson, we are the storytellers. Algorithms, we don't know so much. But storytelling, we have no peers. Our storytelling cuts across all of our disciplines and media, from visual and media arts and writing and literature and publishing, where it is most self-evident, to marketing and communication sciences disorders, where it is less obvious but significant nonetheless. And to the students, no doubt each of you has your own story to tell. And people like me of a certain age, looking back on our youth, reflect on how the life that we have lived, seems summed up by the choices that we have made and the habits of being and character that shape those choices. The rhythms of daily life form a pattern which shape the days and years of our lives, and they are filled with meaning. So make good choices, and whatever you do, don't squander the education that you have been given, because it is a precious, precious gift. And I'm here today to tell you that your education has and will serve you well, very well, and that you have sufficiently mastered a set of academic disciplines that will enable you to solve problems, big and small, and change the world. You are at home in the world of ideas and the world of practice and profession because you understand the relationship between the two. Your education has prepared you well for a life of meaning and hope, no matter the challenges that lie ahead. And know this about yourself: you are entitled to take risks and make mistakes, and you are entitled to change your mind. But rouse yourself to action and engage with something greater than yourself, with something greater than your profession. And while your parents and I wish you a happy and fulfilling life, what we really wish for you is the inclination to lead a good life. For after all, happiness flows from goodness, not the other way around. And those who walk in goodness, who walk in beauty and truth, will have happiness as their faithful companion. I hope that you will have great friends who are also great people. I hope that you will learn, as Kierkegaard reminds us, that while life must be understood backwards, it must be lived forwards. Emerson asked the Divinity School graduates, but when the mind opens and reveals the laws which traverse the universe and make things what they are, then shrinks the great world at once into a mere illustration and fable of this mind. What am I? And what is? Asked the human spirit with a curiosity newly kindled but never to be quenched. There are no more important questions than these, questions given through the ages to the living. How do I live? How do I live my life with meaning and with purpose? It is my wish for you that our convening here today, overbrimming with the promise and anticipation of what lies ahead, will seem like a perpetual spring, never to cease, today and forever in your memory of it. In all that you do, remain faithful to the education that you have earned and to the legacy, the important legacy that you have inherited. Share your talents and resources with those who have not had the good fortune to participate in the bounty of life as you have. And when you depart from this commonwealth of learning, may your life bring you some work of noble note. May you find meaning in your commitment to others. And may your memories of Emerson be undying, always. I love you, and I shall miss you. Well, some of you. Most of you. Good luck and good cheer. Congratulations.